Alright guys, welcome back for another video on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and today I'm going to do a guide on how to 3-star clear chapter hard 710. And this one definitely lives up to its name because it is very difficult, and I feel like it's one of those stages which won't even get easier once you increase your character's level cap or increase the strength of your character, etc. Because this one is a bit of a dilemma for its 3-star. Now, you can see here, one of the star condition is going to be defeated with 10 enemies. However, if you take a look at the actual win condition, you are basically already going to clear the stage if you just beat the main boss. And this stage actually has 3 different waves, and in the first wave, there's only going to be 3 enemies. Second wave is going to be 5 enemies. So if you actually want to clear with 3-star to defeat 10 enemies, you have to make sure the battle lasts at least onto the third wave of reinforcement, and you also have to kill at least 2 other enemies in the third wave before finishing off the boss. And if you make your character too weak, then there's also a chance that you won't actually be able to beat it with more than 60 seconds remaining. So you just kind of need to find a right balance in your power. And like I said, even if the level cap gets higher, you may not necessarily actually able to beat it because you may actually end up defeating the enemy way too early. Now, I do know that tomorrow the level cap is going to increase again. Right now it's capped at 50. Tomorrow it's going to increase to 55. If you ends up your character becomes too strong, you may actually need to dial it back slightly by removing some of your stronger equipment or your badges, etc. You guys just kind of need to tweak and adapt to see what's the right balance of damage. Now, I'm just going to give you guys the way I have beaten it. I'm not sure this is the most optimal strategy. I mean, I obviously was able to clear 3-star, and I actually tried it twice. So I was able to clear with 3-star at least twice, but there were also quite a few failed attempts in the middle as well. I am going to share a gameplay of the full recording, including the failed attempt, just so you guys know where it would have went wrong, and also the clear where it did actually go through. Just didn't want to really remove anything, just so you guys actually know this is not going to be very, very consistent. There is going to be some element of RNG, okay? But I'll show you guys that towards the end of the video. Now, in terms of the strategy itself, you don't want to kill off the boss too quickly, so therefore you don't want to bring a whole team of damage dealers. And from what I have tested, I feel like the right balance is kind of 3 defense or supporting units. So in this case, it's going to be JoJo, it's going to be my Hermes, and also going to be my Speedwagon, okay? So those are going to be my 3 support unit. Now, my 2 damage dealer, for this type of mode, because you want to leave this character till the very end, it's not going to be recommended for you to use single target. Because if you start off with, for example, this wave only has 3 enemies, if you use single target, it's very likely you will kill off the other 2 enemies very quickly, and then just end up doing too much damage to the main boss. And even when the reinforcement come, because you're a single target, there's no guarantee you will end up targeting the newer enemies because you're already so close to the main boss, right? So that's kind of why you want to avoid single target and also potentially melee attackers, and instead you want to go for ranged AoE attacks instead. Now, personally, I don't think you should be using an actual range unit. Instead, I feel like you should go for mid-range unit. And the reason for this is that if you actually use a range unit, what's going to happen in the second and third wave of reinforcement? Some enemies are going to spawn right next to you and start attacking your range unit. And a lot of time, your range unit are some of the most fragile ones out there, so it's very easy for them to be wiped out. And also, a lot of the range units just tend to be single target as well. So those are not the best choices. Instead, what I realized the best choices for this type of stages is the mid-range AoE attackers. So in this case, it's going to be Koichi, and also I have my Pet Shop. Both of them, I think, have a range of, I think Koichi is a range of 4. Pet Shop is a range of 6. So basically, that means you are not actually going to be too far away from your back line, which is Speedwagon. So even when the enemy actually do spawn, all of your characters are actually not going to be too far away from each other, and that just help you to support each other by, for example, giving each other shield, giving each other healing, and also your range attacker can also attack the enemy which spawned right next to you as well, okay? Now let me quickly show you the build for of my characters. Miss, I do have the ability unlocked so that I have her second ult. I also have a passive one unlocked as well. Not sure how necessary those are. I'm not really using her for damage anyway, so I feel like you might be able to substitute her with another 10. JoJo, similar kind of story, also have passive one and also ultimate unlock. Not sure how necessary those are because once again, I'm not really using him for damage. That's just kind of my standard build for the character, and I was too lazy to change it or forgot to change it, to be honest. Now Speedwagon is just basically my leftover gear. There's nothing really needed to talk about him. He's an SR character, so I do have him duped up. Koichi is just basically a standard set. There's nothing too special here either. I do have his passive one unlocked. This one just extra damage. You can potentially get away without this if you just have a slightly better equipment once the level cap actually increases tomorrow. So once again, I don't feel like this one's necessary. And then Pet Shop, this one is not actually invested at all because I wasn't lucky enough to get his dupes. So instead, I have to compensate with some of my best dramatic scenes there. But yeah, that's kind of the build for everyone. Now, one thing I do recommend you guys to have, especially on your range DPS, is going to be this badge set. And the reason for this is that this actually deals extra damage to character whose HP is above 55%. And this is really, really useful for this kind of stages because what it means is that once the main boss HP drop below 55%, your attacks won't be dealing as much damage to him anymore. Whereas the new reinforcement that will be coming out, because they're fresh enemies, their HP will definitely be more than 55%. And this just kind of allow you to kind of indirectly deal more damage to the reinforcement and therefore save your boss damage till the very end. Okay, so that's kind of the build for my characters. Now let me show you the gameplay, and like I said, there are going to be some failed attempts at the start, but I'll also try to timestamp the actual 3-star clear as well.